Hey everyone, it's Mikki here. You're listening to Wikipedia. Happy New Year. And this week on the podcast, I catch up with Professor Grant Schofield. In this conversation, as per usual, we discuss a wide range of topics. We explore the importance of maintaining a positive mindset during injury. We also then dive into broader societal issues, including community responsibility, shifting political landscapes in health and nutrition, and the role of people like RFK Jr. and Elon Musk in shaping policy and vision. We discuss the evolution of education systems, the potential of AI in healthcare, and the balance between human interaction and technology in solving complex health problems, all while highlighting the value of political discourse, societal progress, and health awareness. But also, in amongst all of that, you just get a great conversation between two friends just really chewing the fat. So for those of you unfamiliar with Grant, he is a professor of public health at Auckland University of Technology. He's the director of the university's Human Potential Centre. He's former chief scientific advisor to the Ministry of Education in New Zealand, co-author of 4 best-selling books, and chief science officer for PREKURE. Grant's career has focused on preventing the diseases of modern times and seeing what it takes to help people live a long, healthy and happy life. And he lives and breathes the motto, be the best you can be, and sees this as a game changer for the health system as well, which should be capable of transforming the current health model to one in which we aspire to be well. He's redefining public health as the science of human potential, the study of what it takes to have a great life. Grant is well known for thinking outside the box and challenging conventional wisdom in nutrition and weight loss, as well as physical activity and exercise. And he brings his fluency across several scientific disciplines, from human physiology to psychology to peak performance. He also brings his fluency across several scientific disciplines, from human physiology to psychology to peak performance, to his role at PREKURE, where he delivers world-class training in lifestyle medicine. So we have links to where you can find Grant's books and also his blog, his work at the university, and of course PREKURE, all within the show notes. So you have many touch points as to where you can connect with Grant. Before we crack on into the interview though, I would like to remind you that the best way to support this podcast is to hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast listening platform, because this increases the visibility of Wikipedia in amongst the literally thousands of other podcasts out there. So more people get the opportunity to learn from the guests that I have on the show, including Grant Schofield. For now though, please enjoy this conversation between Grant and I. And actually, I think this is the first time we've done a podcast with the millennium in the background. Actually, Grant, normally it's Tairua.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool. I'm actually at work.
Yeah, I know. It's just like unusual, really. How are you, Professor Grant Schofield? Nice to talk to you. Nice to see you.
Good to be back on the Wikipedia.
Hey, I know. This is where all the cool kids hang out, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought it was timely that we have a chat, because it's been some months and lots has been going on, and sometimes the only way I get to catch up with people I know is to invite them on my podcast so we can have a conversation and I can pick your brain on things, and then the rest of the world can also hear it. So, you know, we're in this lucky position to have you with us.
Awesome. Where are we going to start? How have you got the questions to ask?
Oh, yeah. So my mate, ChatGPT, I put in a, so I use ChatGPT quite a bit. You do too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, what I used to use ChatGPT for, I used to describe it as it was like a little intern that I used that I then edited. Mm-hmm. But over time, Grant, I've become the intern.
Oh, it's got better than me. Can I answer the questions in with ChatGPT as well?
You probably can.
No, I'm not going to do that, but you could.
You're really good. And in fact, what would be hilarious is if you said, if I were Grant Schofield, how would I answer these questions? And it would be interesting to see what chat knows about you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, exactly. But first, how's life? How's running? This is something I'm always interested in knowing about you. How's your training?
My physical activity levels are good. So I'm now 56, so I don't know if that's a code for your knees get a bit worse, but had a torn cartilage, which caused chronic pain. Then got over that, and I'm away again. But I haven't been doing long runs like you do. So I'm a bit disappointed about that. But got a new bike, and I'm going to do the swim run series tomorrow at Takapuna Beach, and it's life's
nice.
pretty good for being active. I follow you vicariously on Strava. I know folks out there that use Strava if you're in the endurance community, but it's about the only decent social media platform there is these days for just keeping an eye on actual friends.
Yes, and just it's fun. It's a positive space because you can just give kudos.
That's all you're allowed to do. You can't give them the opposite of kudos, whatever that is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thumbs down, yeah.
Hey, I tell you what, I was listening to a podcast and Led Hamilton was on it. This was a couple of weeks ago when I was sort of in the midst of, you're always injured as a runner, and I've just got this little glute thing that I'm resolving, and it was particularly painful on this day. And he just had such a good mindset around being injured. So because he basically has said he's been injured his entire career, his entire life, and he's now 60, right? So he's he's been around the block, and he said, I just cannot use that as a limitation. Like, it cannot be the reason why I'm not doing what I love, because I would never be able to do what I want. And I just thought, that's such a good mindset.
It's great. I mean, of course, this is a big wave surfer is out there and all the action, whereas we're running around the block, but still.
Exactly. So it should even be more applicable to people like us, where, we're just like numpties out there doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, Grant, would you hike at all? I was thinking about you and hiking the other day. Like, would that be something you'd be into?
I love hiking. I do like the American style of, you know what I'm going to say, right? Rucking.
Yes. Do you have a ruck?
I do. But I do like the idea of basically doing walking that more closely resembles the aerobic demands of running.
Yeah.
I like that idea in nature. But it's a bit random just to be like, what would be better if rucking involved, doing something useful to society, like you did errands with a rucksack and you were dropping off parcels around the community or something. That would be a good, much better way of doing things. And you got to talk to people along the way and that sort of thing. Sort of like being a post person, I suppose.
Yeah. Or you could like pick up litter, like literally, like
I have been doing that, but I've been frustrated with litter, to be honest. First of all, I shouldn't say this on the podcast, but I picked up something this morning in the sea. I was like, oh, that's a bit of dirty plastic that's picked it up, and I picked it up, but it was a condom.
Oh, God. Really?
I started to get rid of it. So I'm like walking down the beach with this condom in my fingers, like trying to hold it out in front of me, get away from me.
And did you see many people walk past giving you like this weird look, or nah?
It wasn't making eye contact.
Understandably. But I think picking up litter as rucking would be awesome. Like, like around the streets and stuff. But I agree with you. Like, having some purpose to it makes
but there's also this thing about litter, right? That I like, especially like, okay, some stuff gets washed up because of random things, but just walking along the street in Takapuna where I live, and someone's just chucked their McDonald's packets out their car window while they're driving.
Yeah.
Like, what I can't think about that, Mikki, is what that says about your character and place in society in general. Like, how's that even a thing? How's that a possibility that you exist as a human being interacting in a social environment with other people? How did that even happen?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I feel the same when I go past bus stops or street signs and they've been graffitied, and I'm like, what are you even doing? Like, what is the purpose of this? Like, it just makes no sense to me.
And I appreciate there's worse human on human crimes and all that sort of stuff, but still,
Yeah, it's all base level stuff. I tell you what I'm a little bit afraid of, Grant, which is a bit random. Before I jump into my questions, which I want to ask you about, is so Saskia and I have been mailing out our 40 over 40 cookbook, and we're still getting quite a few people ordering it, either the PDF or just the printed version. but I get a little bit anxious, literally, that I have to go into the post shop and then write out addresses and spend about 10 or 15 minutes in the post shop doing that, because of all of the crimes that have happened because it's at my local convenience dairy. And I'm like,
really?
oh my
Is that a
God.
thing?
Yeah. And so of all of the crimes that have occurred, like that you hear about in the news, like the convenience stores and the dairies seem to be like the worst hit in random areas. And I often say this to Barry, is like, I don't want to spend more than time than necessary in there, because, you know, the likelihood of getting killed in your dairy appears to be so much higher now.
What would you do? What do you reckon you'd do?
I don't even know. I'd probably freeze, actually.
Yeah.
Wouldn't like I wouldn't even know. I would not even know.
Yeah, I mean, you've got three options really, haven't you? Fight, well, that's obviously not going to happen. You run away. I could definitely see myself doing that.
Yeah.
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 Or just stand there and basically piss your pants.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure that would happen to me, but yeah. I've been doing a lot of pelvic floor stuff, so it might be all right.
Yeah, I mean, I actually do know what I do, because the one time I got really frightened, maybe 30 years ago now when I was doing my PhD, I used to have to walk past the place where they kept the bodies. It was locked and everything. Like, you weren't going anywhere near it, but it was just on that floor. I was on the third floor. That was on the fourth floor or something. And it was night and it was sort of dark. I couldn't really see where I was going, but this guy I used to know, Mark Bailey, he was coming and he hid and he jumped out.
Oh my God.
Went, Wah! And I just stood there in complete, like, just completely frozen on the spot. So that's,
oh my God.
I know that, like, I wouldn't have survived in Paleolithic times.
Yeah. And in fact, for what it's worth, my stress response is often that paralyzed type response. Like this sounds ridiculous, I know, but when I did the Special K triathlons, I was so frightened. I don't even know why I was so frightened by this. I was like 30. Like, it's not like I don't even know why.
This is like a 200-meter swim and a 8K bike ride. It's a step up from the Wheatbix Kids Triathlon just. And I was so frightened I couldn't move, like literally for about 3 or 4 minutes before the start line. And I'm like, oh my God, that's when I sort of knew triathlon wasn't for me. but that is my thing. And when I have nightmares, my nightmares are that I can't move. I think most people must have this. And then you try and scream and you can't scream. Does it happen to you? Do you ever have nightmares? And no, I have had similar ones, though, when I've been training for the Ironman triathlon or something like that. And I imagine myself trying to run fast, but the air had sort of turned to like a jelly type substance. Yes. And I was only able to make very slow progress. And I imagine that was the whole run. I don't know why that was a recurring dream.
was almost like, well, not reality, because that's not the case, because you're actually a very good runner, but I understand why that was a fear as a proficient athlete. So Grant, anything else you want to share?
No, I think we've decided we're going to talk about the taboo topic of our times, which is politics.
Which you are very good. Yes,
yeah.
And I think the first 2 podcasts we did together, you were very good at talking about the taboo topics and politics of our time. So I thought, hey, this is going to be a great discussion, just to get your thoughts on just what's just played out over the last couple of weeks, because that's when the election was. But essentially, what have you been seeing? What are your thoughts? I've seen a couple of tweets from you and thought you'd be... I know that people are interested in your perspective on things, so I thought I'd like to...
so we'll start in America and we'll get back to closer to Australia, then in New Zealand. Maybe even the UK. We'll talk about the UK as well, because they've sort of gone to shit.
Yeah, of course.
But the US politics has been so interesting with Trump winning.
Definitely.
I have started really realising there's a complete disconnect between, and people are just going to laugh at me on your podcast, some of them.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
It's a serious thing, that between what the reality of the world is, what people's broad range of opinions are, and what you see in mainstream media are not even close, but actually evidence of those institutions conspiring with the stuff, or at least being completely one-sided in the way they report the news. It's an astonishing thing. So I've been much more on X, the Twitter, new version of Twitter.
Yeah.
And I've been surprised, because I've seen, both views, and I've actively sought out those views across the US elections. And then what you see in the media is just completely different things. Painting Trump up as Hitler. I haven't actually been a Trump fan, and I just put this out there. For most of my life, I've been on the political left. Then I regarded myself as a centrist. And now, by all things, I must be somehow on the right, which seems weird since my philosophy in life is for everyone to have a fair go and, good outcomes for everyone is what I'm after. So it's really weird that I've been pushed over to that side of politics, essentially, even though that's not how I've thought of my whole life. But I certainly can't agree with what's going on. So anyway, interesting things in US politics. I think the most interesting thing from our field, Mikki, is the appointment of RFK Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services in the US, which is an all-powerful political position that will allow him to, in his own words, restructure the CDC, the FDA, and the NIH in ways, and other related agencies in ways that bear no resemblance to anything that's happened before. Specifically, he's said two things that I think are interesting. Don't destroy any documents and pack your bags. And in some cases, that'll be entire departments. And interestingly, from our point of view, the first department he's picked out for everyone has to go because it's so corrupt is nutrition.
Wow.
And we're going to see dietary guidelines change like quickly, unbelievably.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a couple of things that I want to get your thoughts on, and just to sort of add to this. So, first of all, I've heard a lot of people who I've followed over the years. They've been mentors in terms of thinking about nutrition, thinking about health, thinking about like the big picture stuff for me, have said exactly what you've said, that they've actually been historically left, but then they've realised that actually their thoughts have been much more aligned with what would be considered right, I guess now. So that's super interesting that you sort of feel the same.
Yeah, I should just say one thing on that though. One thing where I do disagree. So all these illegal immigrants come across the border, right? And say you have got 1.5 million of those in the US. This idea of declaring a state of emergency and somehow in a military fashion rounding them up.
Yeah.
The horse is bolted. Like, if you didn't want them in the country, you shouldn't let them in. They're in there now. Like, there's going to be nothing more than a humanitarian disaster and a massive state of cruelty to do that. So you shouldn't do it because it'll be appalling. You should have not let them in the first place. And if you want to defend your border, which you probably should, do it. But now they're in there, I don't know.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are really questioning, like people, as you said, who support a lot of the policies. That's one thing that they also that a lot of people are opposed to, because you can't really round up however many people, 1.4 million or whatever, and
how do you do
ship
that?
them up. I have no idea. But interesting. So the way that, and what I do actually, the way that I've seen Rob Kennedy, what do we know him as? What do we call him? Bobby? What do we call him?
You just call him Bobby.
Okay, that's easy, because I get his initials confused in my head. They often, everything I've seen referred to him in the media is anti-vaxxer. They always lead out with anti-vaxxer, and that immediately paints him as his position as an extremist, rather than looking at all the other good things that he has the potential to do if he doesn't get roadblocked every step of the way when he does it. But
yeah, and so that's such an interesting one, because I was listening to News Talk ZB News on Friday, and it came on with this, and it introduced RFK Jr. as anti-vaxxer and conspiracy theorist. So now I've got two things to say about that. First of all, if you go and look what he's actually saying about vaccines, it's very clear. He's very coherent on this, that there's a law passed that gives no liability to pharmaceutical companies so far as vaccines are concerned. He said that's ridiculous, that needs to change. And we should have preclinical safety testing like every other drug. Now, I 100% agree with that. I'm not up with every last vaccine's efficacy and side effects, but I do know from every other part of medicine, all medicines have potential benefits and potential harms, and we need to understand those carefully. So that's what he's saying. So he's not an anti-vaxxer. He's a vaccine. He's a scientist in that case. Now, conspiracy theorist. just to be clear, so this is really the top legal litigator against Big Pharma that's ever existed. And he's had them indicted and then convicted of conspiracy.
Yeah.
So
I know.
They're the ones who actually conspired. So go figure. So I actually hit the radio, which is very unlikely. I'm not a violent man, and just started losing my shit everywhere because I think there's never been a bigger opportunity in our field, Mikki, if we more widely call our field together public health.
Yeah.
To see massive changes. The dietary guidelines haven't been fit for purpose for 50 years.
Yeah.
And they've arguably caused way more harm than good. And there's clear evidence that the people making up these guidelines had conflicts of interest, almost all of them, on those committees in the US. And what happens in the US flows to the rest of the world. So it's massive. Do we agree on every last thing? I don't think seed oils is the lowest hanging fruit, to be honest. But all of the stuff around seed processing, and I guess seed oil processing and ultra processing food in general, as I agree with. So it's a broad category, and then additives and some of the yellow dyes and ingredients with numbers on them that I don't know about. 100% agree with that as a thing.
Yeah.
Fluoride, I have an opinion on, actually.
Okay, I'd love to hear it, because I also saw someone else, Chris Masterjohn, I saw put a really good post up about fluoride. But tell us what we think about fluoride.
So every intervention that you do has plausible benefits and harms. And so, you need to understand, when you look at research, you go, is it even true? Is there such an effect? How big is the effect? And is the effect worth pursuing, because you might have other side effects? So you fluoridate water, you reduce, 1 person in 1,000 from a tooth cavity over 5 years, and you might get 23 people in every 100 get fluoridosis, some staining and damaging of the teeth. Now, they're different in magnitude, like a cavity's worse than the fluoridosis, but they're still harms. And how do you compare those apples versus oranges type situations? And I don't think you can. And to the extent that there's small effects, both sides, harms and benefits, and people should be free to choose, and therefore that you shouldn't mandate it. So I probably wouldn't. Would I advocate for good dental hygiene? And the main thing that's actually going to improve your health of your teeth is your diet. So and some sort of dental hygiene, I suppose. I think those are where the big effects are. So I'd say on balance, just don't do it. Which, in my field, public health in New Zealand is more or less like committing an academic suicide, right?
It pretty much is, yeah.
Yeah. So someone will come after me, but I don't. What do I care?
Not too much at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's not fluoride's going to kill you, or it's causing all this widespread damage, but there are some harms, and they're minor, and there's some benefits in minor. So
Yeah, and in fact, that's Chris Masterjohn was a little bit stronger about the fluoride issue, and in fact, he's not a fan of fluoride in water for similar reasons, I believe. And in fact, what we understand as its benefits, you're right that in a lot of cases the risks don't actually outweigh the benefits. But it is a bit like hearsay to start talking about fluoride in water, and you start being, tainted with some sort of conspiracy theory brush at the same time.
That's right.
Whatever.
And let's just be clear. When someone starts to call you a conspiracy theorist or an anti-vaxxer or some other name, they're gaslighting you, because what you do in science is you have a robust and reasoned argument, and this is the politicalization of health. And so what you're going to see, RFK Jr. is going to be absolutely smashed in the next little bit, but I think he's probably got enough public opinion behind him to ride it out.
Yeah. Grant, I'm just really interested to know what your thoughts are. Like I read a piece by Vinay Prasad that talked about, let's say he does get in as the health minister, and he starts to make some policy changes or make some changes, that he's going to be blocked every step of the way by Big Pharma and by Big Food. And in fact, he may not really achieve anything over the next 4 years. Like, what do you think about that?
It's possible. Yeah, I think that's plausible, but at least he's going to be trying. And I think in this case, the Make America Healthy Again's, and I mean, this is a clear and present problem. I mean, I think the majority of Americans and people around the world would agree that you've just been to America, the food supply is shocking. The state metabolic health of the people there is shocking, especially the kids, and including the mental health stuff as well. I think but there is a chance, and you have to be excited about a chance.
That I really like that, and I guess at least if he does get caught up or held up, that it's the intention that it'll gain the attention of other people as well along the way, that may sort of snowball into something happening maybe later.
Yeah. What do you reckon the dietary guidelines would look like? How would they even look? A focus on away from nutrients, on just the whole foods and less processing, and social eating. Maybe that would be good.
Yeah, like the way that Brazil's were, if you remember, like maybe 10 years ago. And for people might not appreciate just how much influence what happens over in the US actually has on what we promote here down under in New Zealand and Australia. Like, it's pretty much cookie cutter. Like, what happens in the US is almost
it's just delayed
transferred.
a bit. Yeah. Which is the exciting part about the anti-wokeism stuff. Frankly, I'm quite in for political activism that's anti-wokeism. Mainly because observation in my life is that often, even though you're thinking about doing the right thing, you often have the exact opposite outcome. And I think some of the be kind to people on this basis and that basis actually ends up achieving the exact opposite. A classic in New Zealand at the moment is this whole race relations treaty of Waitangi thing. There's a whole bunch of people who mean well and they want the best for Maori, but pursuing what they're pursuing is going to end up being way worse for everyone, including them. And so you just end up, I think the right's at least on some decent track with that, not on everything, but that's something.
Yeah. And I guess with the whole dietary guidelines and things like that, like, it just takes time to change. And actually, this is what we say all of the time. We always refer back to the smoking campaigns, and that it took 50 years to come into public health recommendations and to make a noticeable difference to the amount of people smoking and then subsequent sort of health issues. Like, this actually has the potential to be a bit quicker than that if you can make these big changes right at the top, I guess.
Well, I think American politics and what's happening now is going to be if you chuck in Elon Musk as well as RFK Jr. and a few of those other characters. I think you're going to the Department of Government Efficiency, the Doge, these things, which are clearly sorely needed, and they're needed in this country as well, and Australia if you're listening from there. So, we have to do something about that. Then I think you're going to see change at the speed you've never seen it in the history of humanity before. I quite like seeing change. There's always pluses and minuses, but it's an exciting time to be alive, man.
Yeah, interesting. So on that though, like, National here in New Zealand has made huge changes to government departments with heaps of job losses and things over the last year when they came into power. Is that similar to, do you think, what we might see over in the States, like on the same sort of level?
I think when Elon Musk walked into Twitter with the sink, and the meme going, let that sink in, and then he subsequently sacked 80% of the employees.
Wow.
And they operated better. I mean, to be fair, what National's done here has not even got down to the level that they were pre-Labor. So they just need to go harder. One of the reasons I'm so disillusioned with the university, and you'll know what I'm talking about here, is that, almost all of the cost growth over the last 20 years has been with the shrinking of academics themselves, those who do the work slightly, and a massive expansion in the bureaucrats that sit in every position above me in the university. And my hypothesis is if you sacked, you wouldn't have to be that purposeful, just randomly to get 80% of them and sack them, then the place would just operate better and would have so much more resource for the student experience and the learning and the value that we could offer for money. It's just if students had to turn up to the university I work at and pay cash every time of the actual full cost, so not just their cost, but what the Tertiary Education Commission pays the university as well, cash for every interaction with an academic and the system, they'd just be appalled. They'd go, no, I only talked to you for 2 minutes, you want $500. Fuck you. They'll just walk off and discuss because it bears no resemblance to reality, yet it's allowed to happen. So our bureaucrats and governments are, you get in the way of change, and anyone who runs a business is well aware of the stupidity of some of the rules. Anyone who builds a house or wants a resource consent and has to interact with all sorts of different council regulations knows the stupidity of this.
Yeah. Grant, speaking of the education system, I saw a tweet from you last week sort of basically talking about what Elon Musk proposes, and you were like, okay, this is the end of higher education as we know it, basically.
Yeah, so Trump, which was really Musk talking, announced this whole idea of the American Academy, which is they want to sort of get there by taxing big US college endowments, which of course are worth billions, or I don't know how they're going to do that exactly, and then starting a free online university degree level for all American citizens called the American Academy, which would fund basically free degrees at a high standard. And I've heard Musk talk about it a lot before, going, university's a scam, which it basically is, right? So, the cost and the debt you incur for what you're actually learning, well, you're not really learning anything. You might get some professional accreditation, and you might have a good time and grow up and connect with other people. Those are all good uses in society. Those are good things, right? But the actual technical stuff you learn in the degrees, obviously the system's utterly it's not fit for the modern age, right? Where you can learn if the guy who's the world record holder in the javelin has never met another javelin flyer but learnt it off YouTube. I think that pretty much says everything about. Yeah, it's cool, an African guy. Just watch some YouTube videos, learn to do the javelin, become the world record holder. Awesome.
Jeez. Wow.
So, like you can. There's a technical sport with a high degree of practice and specificity, and so everything in life sort of falls down from there. And so if you can do that, then what use do we actually have? And all this infrastructure that I'm sitting in now, what is the absolute useless point of that in the world? And we're just a mirror image of all of the other not-for-purpose institutions like city councils and district councils and government Ministry of Education. Yeah, when I used to work for the Ministry of Education, Mikki, which was an appalling job, I just couldn't do it. I'd sit in the Ministry of Education building that's got about 5,000 people in it, and I'd do these thought experiments because I didn't really have anything to do. And so I'd go, well, what would happen if there was like an earthquake now and this entire building fell down and no one survived it and the Ministry of Education didn't exist anymore? Would the schools open tomorrow in the rest of the country? Yes. Would they continue to operate? Yes. And then I started, after a while, I was like, well, yeah, there's probably people in this building that do property and that's probably an important thing. So I asked someone about that and I was like, oh, yeah, they're the worst of the lot, just fucking useless, and so, I mean, it's a little bit morbid and appalling, but again, it's always worth thinking about the exact opposite. Like, what if we got less people here? Would we be better at it? And the answer is often yes. I mean, the Twitter example is an astonishing thing, right? You get rid of 80% of the employees.
Yeah.
Literally 8,000 people gone, 2,000 left. It's better. Wow.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, not better for the 8,000 people that were fired, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
Well, no, they go into something else where they can contribute more usefully in society. They clearly won't do anything useful.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And then they themselves feel more useful, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's the truth of the public service sector as well. When you're just grossly overemployed there and you're not actually doing anything useful, just carrying around a manila folder or an iPhone to look busy.
Yeah. Okay. Super interesting. So with regards to then, if we go back to the health system in the US, and the dietary guidelines, etc. So do you actually think that there could be some wholesale changes that would come into effect pretty quickly over the next couple of
immediately.
years?
Over the next year, I think you'll see a completely different situation. I mean, they're still broken. They've still got, what is it? 89% of people have one or more of the features of metabolic syndrome and 40% have all five, something like that. So, you're not turning that ship around anytime soon. They're still going to be in and out and Wendy's and McDonald's and wherever else they go. So that's not going to change. But to stop the trajectory, redo the Department of Agriculture to do regenerative farming and concentrate on actually growing food for a population rather than doing factory stuff. That's a big shift to turn around, but you've got to try.
That is true. Yeah. 100%. I find it really interesting because here in New Zealand, we don't even think about health, do we? We haven't had a nutrition survey completed in the last since 2008, 2009. There's a small Life in New Zealand survey, I think, is that done maybe every year or it might be self-report, I'm not sure. But it's certainly, there's no emphasis put on health at all.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's so interesting to see this, right? Because back in the day, we'd be on TV or radio when those were actually things, or in the newspaper every week or twice a week, having our say about, one of the important topics of society is around our health, what we're eating, what the debates around that were. And whilst that was frustrating in some ways at the time, in hindsight, that was the heyday of democratic engagement in health. It's not even a topic. Yeah. There's no, I could stand up on the roof and, put press releases out. I could do this, could do that. No one cares. But what they do care about, ED waiting times, and they do care about suicides. Obviously that sends such massive ripples through society. But besides that, and any of the discussions around the solutions to our state of health appear at the moment utterly unfathomable in their stupidity. We need to just train more doctors. But really, it's just, so the cause of our poor health is just not going to the doctor enough. And if we went to the doctor more, we would be healthier. It's so stupid. Nothing against GPs. I can't even imagine why I would go to the doctor. What could they plausibly do to me to help me? I can do my own bloods anyway, my blood pressure, and so I can do all my own metabolic stuff because of the resources I have. And people don't have that. I get that. But what piece of advice could they give me? What would they do? I can't.
Yeah, 100% agree. Totally agree. And it's almost not their job, is it?
No.
This is how we sort of set them up. Go to your GP and they'll fix your cholesterol problem or fix your blood pressure or whatever with medication. But also they'll also say, eat less, lose weight, eat less saturated fat. They'll give you diet guidelines which are completely outdated.
Yeah, that could actually cause harm.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see a study that came out yesterday? I think you might have reposted it.
Oh, which one?
Where they pitted some doctors against ChatGPT.
No, I did not see that.
So there was three conditions, right? So there was this ChatGPT having a go by itself, and there was the doctors by themselves, and there was the doctors with the ChatGPT as well, right? And so the dimensions were empathy, correct diagnosis, potential for harm, and best treatment. Now, ChatGPT outdid both the other groups, including the doctors with ChatGPT, on empathy, accuracy of diagnosis, treatment plan, and chance of harm. And interestingly, the chance of harm with the doctors was about 20%, and it was about 4% with the ChatGPT. So what do you even make of that,
I know, yeah. Dr. Google's just got a leg up, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're not saying don't go to your GP, by the way. This is not meant as medical advice, blah, blah, blah.
Well, no. Well, it is interesting, though, right? Particularly in your field of work where you're the sort of co-founder and co-director, is that right, of PREKURE. So You're now training a bunch of individuals that work alongside doctors to do what people expect their doctors to be able to help them with, but actually in so much more in depth.
Yeah, because So I reckon there's two words that are worth thinking about here, right? So what doctors and ChatGPT are good at is complicated problems. So things where there's a known solution, so a complicated problem is putting an airplane together or flying it in the first place, or making up some drugs and doing a drug trial. And prescribing, those are complicated problems. They're hard, but if you do it right, you get a reliable solution. What they're hopeless at is dealing with complex problems, which is behavior change, right? Which is the world we live in. And you might have an AI solution to that, but it doesn't exist yet. At the moment, that sort of health coaching paradigm for me is where the gold sits in health. Meeting people where they're at, being curious about what they're interested in, without judgment, walking alongside them and helping them, everything you live for, basically. Is really a complex problem, and the only way of solving complex problems is human on human, and that's why I'm so interested in that. And we don't train a single bit of that at med school, or nursing colleges, or physios, or anything. We just don't do that.
Yeah, which is the way it is, which has then, of course, brought the whole health coach as a career and as an option for people. So at least now there are people who have those skills who are out there, but it's just making it accessible to a lot more people probably. And maybe this new sort of model over in the States, I mean they've got an entirely different healthcare system, and I couldn't even tell you how that works, only that if people have health coaches, it's typically in clinics where they pay out of pocket, as I understand, rather than necessarily.
Although things like the Verters low carb trial with diabetes, which has been really successful. People talk so much about the treatment modality, which is carbohydrate restriction, which is fair enough. If you can't get your blood sugar down, eat less of it. But what they fail to say is that was administered with health coaching. So it's an important. The treatment's one thing. The complicated solution part of it's one thing, but the complex solutions the other half, and we keep forgetting about that,
Yeah. Who pays for health coaches here in New Zealand? Is it user pays? Is it part of
so there's a bunch employed by primary care through that system, right? And so that's it's not great pay, and it's all in the high risk areas. So people like our friend Jared Canners is employed by Te Reki Medical Centre through government funding. And then there's a whole bunch of people who are just in private practice. I'm looking at how we would set up a whole alternative primary care system, where GPs and psychologists are at the top of their game and managing groups of metabolic and mental health coaches. And so the behaviour change stuff's sort of done there. You come there for health in the first place. You could actually you go there for a reason, to help you think about and remain healthy, and meet your goals in life. So watch the space. PREKURE wants to charge at that space.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah. And so that's like your 5-year plan?
Yeah. I want to really get into that and talk up as I say, I'm not anti-doctors and medicine. I just can't imagine why I'd go there. I can see why some people go there, and they have use for, when you do develop some diseases and stuff. I'm not anti-medicines in that space, but they could, we could have them operate on top of their game and outsource the behavioural stuff, bring it on.
Yeah, 100%. So Grant, what do you think about the state of New Zealand now? Like, we're a year post the election here in New Zealand, and there's been it seems to be like a whole lot of change, but then I'm not sure, and people still, there's a lot of backlash with what's happened here over the last year. What are your thoughts?
Well, the left versus right stuff's interesting. If a coalition of Greens, Te Paramari and Labour got on, I would literally leave the country. And I would do that because there's two imperfect systems and one's better than the other. So the imperfect systems are managed social capitalism, which is the right. And so you encourage people to set up business and become and develop wealth, and you celebrate that. The downsides of that is it creates some social inequality, but it also creates wealth. And you need wealth to be able to do stuff. And so that's that system. The second is a sort of left-leaning socialism, which makes everyone more equal, but you drag everyone down to the lowest common denominator. You might be standing next to each other equally, but you're all poor. And that's a really shit system because you've got no resources. And it's been proved time and time again throughout history that a managed social capitalism is the best of a bad lot. It's utterly imperfect. But if you don't pursue that, and I'm not trying to be political about this, I'm just trying to be logical about what's going on here. You need resources and you need to be able to produce stuff to trade with the world. And even if we weren't trading with the world and we just traded with ourselves, we still need to produce stuff. And so not knowing how to produce stuff is just weird. And no one's got a right to make a living unless they try at it. And so, we need to encourage trying and we need to celebrate success. And I feel really strongly about that. And I don't know what you feel about that. I mean, you run a business and you've been on the other side in academia where you can just float around and do whatever you want. What do you make of all
that? I found the latter there were lots of fun things and I loved it, but in some aspects I also found it quite unstimulating. And actually it was like in some of my positions I just felt like turning up and being mediocre was enough, but it was wholly unsatisfying to be in a mediocre environment, like where I couldn't.
They say you're awesome for being mediocre.
Yeah, that's it. And and I found it very it was unmotivating. Actually, I found I did less, I achieved less, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I have actively not particularly been trying very hard at the university for ages, and really working hard on everything else, and I'm still the highest performing person here.
Yeah, that says something.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not still turn up and try and do some work and that, but I'm not just like driving at it 24/7. I'm driving at things 24/7 across my life, but those are more about health change and what we're doing at PREKURE, which I'm pumped about. But I literally haven't been trying that hard, and I'm still the best person.
Well, I remember going to a retreat when I was at AUT, and two of my colleagues who had been there years and years and years were like, the only way to succeed in academia is if you devote you have to work 7 days a week and you have to spend hours per day. And I remember both Karen and I looked at each other and went, there is no way that we're going to succeed in academia if that's the case, because there is no way that we can possibly work under those conditions. So, a lot of people put in big hours, but I guess it's how productive those hours are.
There's a lot of people at the university who are very busy. But as I say, like literally you could change the whole system. As an example of doing it well, 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago, more than 30 years ago, when I worked in the psychology department in CTU in Rockhampton in Australia, to do the entire year's worth of results of all of the 4 years of the whole undergraduate degree, which is a big degree, psychology degree, and it's professionally accredited with the Australian Psychologists, like all sorts of complexities to deal with. Literally, Graham Davison, who's a boss, would buy a box of beers, would sit around for 2 hours with stuff printed out and sort it out, and it was done.
Wow. Clearly a rock star at his job.
Yeah, but like we're so far from that here now. We've got layer and 25 years, 30 years later, we've got layer and layer and layer and layer of bureaucracy and boards of studies and exams. I don't even know what these things are. I get invited to them, and I don't even know the difference between an exam board and a board of studies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to be able to shed light on that for you, but I appreciate what you're saying. Hey, what do you reckon, Grant, though? So one of the things that's come out of the US politics, I guess that some of the stuff that I've been hearing is that, Elon Musk is a big personality, and as is Donald Trump, and they've actually got competing goals. Like Elon he's like Donald Trump wants to put tariffs on everything, and Elon's like, well, we need stuff from other places in order to have, to do what we do. So, and that's actually just going to blow up in their face. Like, any thoughts around that? Have you heard much about that?
Well, I don't know about the tariffs thing. I haven't quite figured how that would replace income tax in any meaningful way. Yeah, but on one hand, having just built an entire bike from AliExpress.
Oh, nice one.
It's good fun. And I've had it all painted up custom in the colours of the Buzzy Bee toy you had when you were a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's choice. But it's stupid that I can get it in so cheap. So in some ways, they should have some cost on them that makes them not stupid. Because I've just been buying everything off AliExpress recently. just I need a filter for my pool. AliExpress, like it's so stupid, or Temu's even cheaper for that. Well, you got to watch the quality. So I don't quite get all that, but I think they've got Musk has got a single goal, right? I think we're going to Mars, baby. Yes. We're a multiplanetary species, and I think he's just looked at it and gone, I'm going to need to have control, and I want lack of regulations. I want to send off hundreds of rockets a day. I'm going to Mars, and I'm going to do what it takes. So I think he's singularly focused on that. I think Tesla and all that stuff, which by the way I think is choice. If the minute robo taxi comes out, I'm getting one. I'm just going to be zooming around everywhere, no steering wheel. This whole robot thing's going to be driving me. It's going to be awesome.
I went on a way. We used a Waygo when we were in Scottsdale, like the Google version.
Oh, the Waymo,
the Waymo. Yeah. I was a little bit terrified at first, but there was nice calming music playing in the car, and then I just forgot that we didn't have anyone driving us and that we were just being driven. It was great, actually. It was cheaper than Uber.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that. The one thing I'm just as a slight diversion, so the robo cars, the cyber taxis and the robo van and all that, that's all choice. I'm predicting that the next actual social disaster, though, is the Optimus robot.
Having our own personal robot.
Social disaster. Like, you won't have to do the dishes, cooking, cleaning.
Oh, I know.
I just can't imagine that ends well.
I also can't imagine that will ever come to fruition, will it? Really?
Oh, no, I reckon it's got to. But I reckon 10 years you're going to be Optimus.
Do you think so? Well, maybe. Maybe we need to have this conversation again in about 7 years to see where you're at. So you heard it here first. I'm predicting everyone will want an Optimus robot, but I'm predicting it falls into the same category as social media and gaming as a social disaster, but on steroids. Yeah.
Back to where we were, which is Elon Musk and Donald Trump being on the same agenda. I think so. He's just thinking about that, and I think he offers, quick insights into, logical policy that really suits the right. And so you will see Trump go schools, 8-point plan. It's Musk. 8-point plan university. Musk. 8-point plan. Blah. It's Musk. He's very clear at logical solutions to societal-wide problems. Will it also create difficulties? Hell yeah. Is it the right approach? I don't know. But at least someone's aspiring. He's like, I like the stuff when he's like, if it's going to be the car of the future, at least to at least look like the future.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
totally.
the future needs to be fun. And then it's like, we're going to build a base on Moon and we're going to call it Moonbase Alpha, exactly what they called Space 1999. And, it's just, he's naming things after friggin' movies. What's he calling them? It's like literally a Joker in Gotham City situation, Dark Knight, it's just that you can operate at that level. And he's even getting interviewed. So now it's the richest and now most powerful man in the world going, well, if Camilla wins, you're screwed. Yeah, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of quite a fan, but sort of, and then people go, I don't really like him, and I don't know. It's like, I love the future.
And it's interesting. So when you're talking about people not liking Elon Musk, I mean, nobody likes Donald Trump. And actually, a lot of, I say nobody likes Donald Trump. He's been painted as so many terrible things. And for what it's worth, is he the sexual assault, misogynist?
Yeah, misogyny in general, yeah. We can see
that. Yeah.
But then he's had the dance,
Yes, I've heard about the dance. I've not seen that myself, actually. But I guess maybe there are, rightly or wrongly, people will not be able to look past that, and that he is the leader of the free world, if you like.
Well, he's a narcissist.
Yeah,
but
there are a lot of people like that.
I guess that's what the position attracts. It selects for narcissism.
Yeah.
I suppose it must.
Yeah. And Kamala Harris was sort of almost painted by a lot of people as almost like Hillary Clinton or Michelle Obama. Or I don't know, there was definitely some sort of halo above her head for a large part of the campaign, and then it seemed to all fall apart for her.
Yeah, what did you make of the Joe Rogan podcast stuff with that she didn't go on, and, and Trump and Musk and all those guys and Vance did.
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, maybe I'm seeing it, I'm listening through a selected filter, right, from the things that I listen to. But she, for all intents and purposes, it appeared she wasn't up for the job, and she couldn't string together enough coherent thoughts to last an entire 3-hour episode with Joe Rogan. And she was, I don't know, and the fact that Joe Biden might not have been fit to be president, but she didn't immediately take over the role when she was put up as the new sort of candidate. People thought that was, almost illegal to leave someone who wasn't fit to run the country in the position as president. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, to be honest, Grant. I didn't really follow
the Biden thing was weird, right? So it's like, if it was your dad and he had Alzheimer's and even he's just working down at the local store, everyone's like, Mikki, like, what are you doing? Your dad shouldn't be down there. Like, you'd be like, yeah, true.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I know. I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting to look from and actually maybe it's probably quite good that we're in New Zealand, so we're not over it in the States, so we're not having to, I don't know, live the effects of the election and the potential.
Yeah, there's obviously a bit of bitterness there from Dems as well.
I reckon.
I just thought of a fun thing that listeners might be interested in.
Yes, please.
About Mikki Williden's fame.
Oh, yeah, tell the listeners about Mikki Williden's fame.
Well, it was just when I was talking about dads, I was reminded that I was at my dad's funeral, right? And like your dad's funeral, people come up and talk to you about you and your dad and all that sort of stuff. This random woman comes up and goes, "Oh, is that Mikki Williden?" I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm such a fan. She's amazing. Would you better introduce me?" Oh.
So sorry about that, Grant.
No, it's funny as.
Yeah. Yeah. Famous people, Grant. Amazing.
Celebrity funeral.
Yeah, I know. There could be something in that, actually. Yeah. And I mean, as I understand it, post your dad's funeral, you were like, almost like people were asking you to also be celebrants at their father's funerals because you did an amazing job.
It's like, you did a great job at that funeral. But I was like, yeah, but it's my dad. I was going to, I was up for it. I tried, I'm not going to be able to do the same for your dad because I don't know your dad. I know there's good money in funeral emceeing. What's it even called? Celebrant? You're not really celebrating it.
No, you are a celebrant though.
Okay.
Yeah, celebrating life. Celebrating life.
I was like, man, that'd be so awkward. Can you imagine doing that as a job? The lady, the funeral home lady offered me a job.
Wow. Well,
there's the other inappropriate thing at my dad's funeral, like the Mikki Williden famous thing, and that lady from the funeral home offered me a job while they were charging us $15,000.
Yeah. And did it not click to you? Actually, there could be good money in this if I've just had to pay $15,000.
I think they get most of it, to be honest.
Yeah. So, Grant, I mean, look, people might listen to this and go, well, what the hell does Grant know? And I mean, Mikki knows nothing, clearly, on the basis of the questions that she was asking Grant. Equally, though, I always think it's good just to have a conversation. I'm just really interested to hear how other people think, particularly because we are removed here in New Zealand, but it will have flow-on effects in hopefully positive ways in things that we care about, like health, Yeah,
and also the functioning of a social democracy depends on widespread political conversation. I haven't really wanted to do political conversation before because I just thought, what was the point? Actually now I'm going to pursue it more because I feel that the thing is you need to engage with everyone's opinions, especially people who don't agree with you. That's the whole point of a functioning in democracy is there's no way we're all going to agree on anything. And we must discuss it, though, and we have to discuss it. And by necessitation, it's going to be uncomfortable. And you're going to have negative emotions. Like it's just unavoidable, and that's good.
Yeah, and also I think what is super interesting is if you've said things today that people are surprised about. Ideally, what they'd then do is go and understand and want to understand more why you think that, and so they'd then go and investigate, right?
Make a coherent argument back and prove me wrong. Like I'm likely, just to be clear, I'm probably wrong on half the stuff I said.
Yeah.
So, it may not be the best solution that I'm offering. It might be actually stupid. It might be fundamentally so dumb that it's going to make things worse. I'm just not sure which half that is yet. So help me find out. And I bet you that's true for everyone else out there, right?
100%. And often, like the stuff that I hear about the politics is from people who haven't listened to the same things that I've listened to. And I've not listened to what they've listened to if they've listened to it, so I think you've got a lot to gain from hearing lots of different perspectives.
Yeah, I actually, just to be even more clear about it, I actually think the future of a robust societies, and New Zealand's always, and Australia are both robust societies, like they're quite good fun to live in. And part of the fun is widespread disagreement, but on it doesn't have to be friendly terms, but on civil terms. Even our worst debates with your Rod Jacksons and your Lisa Team Ringers and all those sorts of ones in academic nutrition, they were still engaging civilly, not friendly, but civil. And I so deeply appreciate that, frankly. They weren't gaslighting you too much, and it wasn't. They're trying to still make scientific arguments. They're wrong, but in my opinion, but still.
Yeah. Totally. Hey, Grant, so what's news with you anyway? Anything else to report as we wrap this out?
So I'm just sort of moving away from the uni stuff and moving more to PREKURE stuff. So exactly what the relationship remains with AUT, probably nothing after what I said today.
This will come out way later. So
just to spend more time. Like I don't know. Like I think your audience is slightly younger demographic than me, but I'm 56, right? And I think towards 65. Not that I'll stop working then, but the thought of just being an academic and seeing out your time over that 9 years, I find appalling. So I'm not doing it. So I'm charging at other stuff. So and everyone's. I know you feel this way. I've talked about this a lot. Is you got to always feel your best work's still ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
If you don't, what the hell are you doing? So my best work's still ahead of me, and it's probably not going to be at the uni. It's probably going to be still in public health, but reimagining some of the ways that we can do it, solving some of those hard problems. Yeah, that's what I think about.
Nice one, Grant. So where's the best way to sort of connect with you? Is it X?
Yeah, just go to PREKURE.com.
PREKURE, brilliant.
And just look us up on Grant Schofield or any social media thing you can get your hands on. I'm probably on it, except for TikTok. I never understood that.
Well, maybe post-academia, maybe you can start a career in understanding TikTok. I don't know. You might go viral.
might just. Or one that might crash and burn.
That's true. All right. Hey, Grant, thanks so much for your thoughts. All right, team, hopefully you enjoyed that. And of course, as I said in the intro, Grant is well known for thinking outside the box and challenging conventional wisdom. And so some of the things that we might have discussed might not necessarily be along the same wavelength that you might be on, but I always think it is so good to just hear different perspectives. So hopefully you at least got that from the conversation. Next week on the podcast, I chat to my friend Hayley Babcock from Hayley Happens Fitness. I think you're going to love that episode. It is about health and fitness and strength training as we head on to 2025. Until then, though, you can catch me over on Instagram, Threads and Twitter at Mikki Williden, Facebook at Mikki Williden Nutrition, or head to my website, mikkiwilliden.com. All right, team, you have the best week. See you later.